Okay, today is our Willo market update for Central Phoenix, a weekly update. Willo is probably it's our second, I guess, technically our second highest priced neighborhood of the large neighborhoods. There are some little pockets like Los Olivos and parts of Roosevelt, that sort of thing, that are probably a little bit higher. And obviously in Kento, Palmcroft is kind of our most expensive, larger neighborhood in Central Phoenix. But Willo is a big neighborhood and very high priced for Central Phoenix. Sometimes I look at these prices and I cannot believe it. There was a time when nobody wanted to live down here, it felt like, or very few people did. But anyway, so just kind of a general trend before I dig into the data. We're definitely starting to see some trends that show that the market is starting to weaken. Now, our market weakens every summer for obvious reasons. It's hot. Not as many people are here. Not as many people want to get in the car and go look at houses. A certain number of sellers don't even want to show their homes during the summer. So we do see kind of a general softening of the market in summertime, but it is only April. To be seeing softening it's a little early overall to start to see that. So if this continues, this will not be a good sign for the market overall. We have seen rates drop a little bit. I wouldn't say it's been an extreme drop, but it's been a little bit of a drop. Last year and the year before that, as the rates went up, we kind of saw if rates were below 7, that buyers came back, and if rates went above 7, the market kind of dropped out. We're below 7 right now as of the last time I checked, but we're still not seeing those buyers come back in a huge way. We have seen a little bit of a pickup this spring, but it hasn't been crazy. So anyway, let's dig into the data and we can discuss more there. For our Willo data for this month, the number of active homes you can see is kind of on a bit of a gradual decline. It really does seem like, kind of generally speaking, we're seeing some signs that the market is starting to cool off as far as a lot of the Central Phoenix neighborhoods. Cromford's kind of reporting the same thing citywide. We're going to do the full city of Phoenix data next week, so we'll have a better picture of an overall of what's going on in the area. This is normal for spring, but this is a little early for it to be dropping off this much, so kind of a sign that we're cooling off, I would say. For pendings, we had kind of a gradual increase earlier this month. That's kind of leveled off. Again, a sign that maybe our market's cooling off potentially a little bit here. New listings, I would just call this flat. This is, it's just a pretty small number in general, so we're going to see some variation there from week to week. Sold over the last 30 days, we've had a big bump in this number over the last month. So that is a sign that, some of these houses are starting to close. That's why we're starting to see the actives drop a little bit as well. Sold in the last 6 months, we're seeing a bit of an increase. That's normal for this time of year. I wouldn't call that a stellar increase. I wouldn't call that a super healthy market, but it has increased some. We've got a little bit of a discrepancy on what's going on here between the average list price and the median list price. That is probably a sign that we've got some higher price listings that are throwing the averages off a little bit of some statistical noise. The median number is climbing though, and that's probably the more accurate of the two. The higher price listings are kind of throwing that number off as far as the averages go, but the median price is still climbing. That's a pretty steady climb. So that's a positive. Still seeing some price increases here. Average original list price, that's the price that the sellers hit the market with. Those are kind of the medium and the average are kind of tracking at about the same there. So here you can see the average original, and over here is the median original. So kind of tracking it about the same, and those are still climbing. So it doesn't look like the idea that the market has cooled off a little bit has kind of hit the Willo market yet. Willo is kind of on the fringe of what we would call the luxury market. So maybe a little bit lower than the luxury market overall, but some of those homes are probably considered to be luxury. The luxury market's been pretty crazy this spring, so it's kind of diverged a little bit from the overall market. And this might be what we're seeing here, is that the sellers in Willo are kind of seeing that. Average prices are approaching $1 million in the neighborhood, so as we're going to see here in just a second. Average price drop, that was going up. That was going up earlier this month and has kind of leveled off. So again, we've got some sellers that are holding out, I'm kind of assuming, and aren't really making any big moves to get their properties sold just yet. Average sales price over the last 30 days was kind of declining a little bit earlier this month, and now it's made somewhat of a jump. Average sales price over the last 6 months, we have seen a pretty significant jump there, almost $100,000 over the last couple weeks. That again probably has a little bit to do with some higher end prices throwing it off, but also that's kind of typical for our spring selling market to see that price jump a little bit. Average closed price per square foot. Now I like this number because it factors in what's going on, with home sizes. So if you have several large homes sell for a high price, it can throw that average off. But price per square foot, that's gonna equal that out a little bit. We've seen that's climbed earlier in this month, over the last 4 weeks or so, and then dropped just slightly this week. I wouldn't call that a trend. I wouldn't call that anything to be super concerned about just yet. Average days on the market for closed properties, we're seeing that go down, and I think this is really interesting here. So we're seeing that number go down over the last 5 weeks, but if you look at the average days on the market for the active and pending, we're seeing that go up. So what that tells me is that we've got some sellers that are not super motivated to sell, and they're hanging on. We've got a difference, I believe it's a difference of almost 30 days between the two. So the sellers that in Willo that are priced well and have met the market, either they've dropped to the price that they need to get it sold, or they priced it originally where they need to get it sold. Those houses are moving right away, or relatively quickly. 60 days is not a bad number for a market, at this price point. But we're seeing obviously that there are quite a few sellers that are kind of hanging on here. This number is starting to go up. So folks, if you're not priced at the right price point, the market is going to tell you right now. I know that a lot of sellers have big hopes and high dreams to get the top dollar for their property. What we're seeing, obviously, and this shows it, in Willo is one of our bigger Central Phoenix neighborhoods. So this is probably going to bear out in our statistics next week as well. If you're motivated and you're willing to price your property right, it's going to sell. If you're dreaming, looking for a price that isn't realistic, or trying to stretch the market a little bit, you might hang out on the market for a little while. Okay, so there you have it. Those are our numbers for this week for the Willo neighborhood. Next week, we're going to be doing the overall Central Phoenix preview. Kind of excited about that because I think it's going to give us an overall picture of what's going on in the market here in Central Phoenix. A lot of these neighborhoods are kind of small, so you get some swings that you wouldn't necessarily see. But the Central Phoenix market, or the Central Phoenix overall update, has a lot of numbers in it. So we're going to have a pretty good idea of what's going on, or a much better idea, much clearer idea of what's going on with Central Phoenix, especially as we get more numbers. Obviously, this is only week 5, and I'm a week behind, not a week behind, but I started tracking the overall numbers for Central Phoenix a week later. So next week will be week 5 for it too. So anyway, if you like what you see here, feel free to subscribe. Hit me up if you have any more interest in detailed. I do have other neighborhoods. I'm just not going to profile every single neighborhood in Central Phoenix. Some of them don't have a real strong identity, if that makes sense. And so people aren't necessarily seeking those numbers out. But if you do have some interest, I'm happy to give you those numbers for your specific number. You can call me, or you can message me here in the comments, or just call me at 480-694-7643.